I have never had, and I do not have, any personal animus towards my political opponents. I think it's an important part of democracy that you should take the view that those you disagree with politically are well intentioned, even if you think their solutions, their policies are wrong. So when I was in the House of Commons, I had a number of cross-party friendships with people on the Labour benches, the SNP, the Liberal benches. And I think that's a good thing. I think it's a healthy thing in a democracy that when you lose an election, you accept that the other side has won and that though their policies may not work, they are not bad people. And I don't think Keir Starmer is a bad person. And more pertinently and more importantly, I don't think Angela Rayner is a bad person. I actually have quite a lot of respect for her. I think somebody who is able to achieve so much when life in its early stages was against her, was difficult, is really very impressive and is one of the great things about this country, that there is social mobility and that you can go to the highest jobs in the land from the hardest circumstances. I think that is a good thing about the United Kingdom. I also think that calling for other politicians to resign is usually pretty cheap. It's point scoring, it's trivial, and you think if the circumstances were reversed, if you were in the position of that minister, you would normally not think that it was serious enough to be a resignation matter. But there are circumstances when that changes. And I'm afraid Angela Rayner is in that circumstance now. Her tax affairs have become deeply, deeply problematical for her, for the Labour Party, and indeed for the country. I'm not an advocate of high taxation. I think everybody is entitled to minimise their taxation legally. I think the view of Lord Clyde that used to underpin our relationship with what was then the Inland Revenue, that the taxman isn't allowed to put the largest shovel into our stores. We are not obliged to set up our personal affairs, so that the taxman can take as much as possible. It's absolutely reasonable. I think the rule of law requires a clear differentiation between tax avoidance and tax evasion. Tax avoidance is setting up your affairs to minimize tax, is legitimate, indeed in many ways sensible, and people who have pensions and ISAs are using tax avoidance legitimately. Tax evasion, on the other hand, is a crime if it's done deliberately. It is defrauding the revenue, and people sometimes go to prison for it. You have to be honest with the taxman. You have to say what your affairs are and then pay the right rate of tax accordingly. You can adjust your affairs if there is an option of doing so, but you cannot say things that are not true. And this is fundamental to our system because our tax system still depends a good deal on trust, on taxpayers telling HMRC the truth about their affairs. Now, I think there is a difficulty for Labour ministers who advocate higher taxation and are critical of tax avoidance schemes when they themselves use tax avoidance schemes. I think that is an issue that arises and it makes them politically weak. It's not criminal, but it's unwise. If you're a socialist, you really have to make sure that you're paying as much tax as people expect, rather than going necessarily by the black letter of the law. You have to be that little bit more careful because socialism is a high tax creed. Nonetheless, tax avoidance remains legal and a matter of politics rather than either morality or law if you arrange your affairs to minimize taxation. So I think Angela Rayner a few days ago was in trouble politically, but not more than that. Today things have changed. Today we have had the announcement that her tax was underpaid, that she saved tens of thousands of pounds by a misdeclaration in relation to her sole property. It turns out that she was not allowed to do that. She has reported herself to the standards officials, and she has said that she will now pay the tax and will be in negotiations with HMRC about it. She also says in her defence, and this is important, that she was given bad advice by a tax accountant. Now, I don't think this is good enough. Every year, I send in a self-assessment form. Been doing it since I was an 18-year-old. Every single year, the form goes in. And every single year, my accountant writes to me saying, we have prepared your tax return diligently, but you must check it carefully because we've done it on the basis of information you have given to us, and we need to make sure that that information is correct. And the ultimate legal liability is with me, not with my accountants. And that is very important because it's an incentive to check your tax return carefully and to be sure that you are saying the right thing, the truthful thing, the honest thing. So I don't accept that point that it was the advisors, because ultimately you have a responsibility. And Angela Rayner is a highly intelligent lady. She would not be the Deputy Prime Minister if she weren't. She's not some naive flibbertigibbet. She is a capable, successful politician. She's quite capable of reading and understanding advice. After all, that's the job of a minister. What was it Margaret Thatcher said? Advisors advise and ministers decide. And it seems to me that Angela has not decided for herself. She's allowed to blame it on advisors, which I don't think is the right thing to do. But the other problem for Angela Rayner is the smoke and mirrors that we've had for the last few weeks about this. Had she come out straight away and said, oh my goodness, I've looked at this and I've discovered I made a mistake, it was an honest mistake, I'm going to repay it, again, I think there'd be a lot of sympathy for the position she was in. Taxation is complicated. The government has made the taxation of second homes even more complicated. We did too. We did stupid things. I'm very against these extra charges on second homes. I think they are anti-aspiration, they're anti-business, they're anti-prosperity, but it has to be admitted that George Osborne started them. So these dreadful taxes came in with the Conservatives, and then dear old Michael Gove put it into his levelling up bill to allow councils to whack up the council tax. Well, that was a silly idea too. Nonetheless, we started it, Labour's taken it further. And so, yes, it is complicated, and yes, an honest mistake, rapidly corrected, might have been forgivable even for somebody in the heart of government. But instead of that, there's been obfuscation. There has been an effort to cover up. We've even been told that she couldn't say what had happened because of a court order. Now, this was prize nonsense because Angela Rayner is a Member of Parliament, and members of Parliament benefit from the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights, 1689, what does it say? It says that no court outside Parliament may question any proceedings in Parliament. This gives members of Parliament an absolute right of free speech, which no other court can override. So whatever some court said, she could have made a personal state in Parliament to set out the picture, to make things clear. She chose not to. That was a voluntary choice. She didn't want to come clean, and now we know perhaps why, because the tax system wasn't as good as it ought to have been. And so you've gone from, and this so often happens in politics, an honest mistake leading to a political row, leading to a cover-up, which then ultimately leads to a resignation. It's not the offence itself. The offence itself could conceivably be accepted as a misfortune, as an error. But it's then the mass effort to cover it up and say everything was done properly. I'm afraid to say I think this makes her position untenable. And I am sorry to say that because I was Lord President of the Council who swore Angela Rayner into the Privy Council. It was a Zoom meeting, so I actually introduced Angela Rayner over Zoom to the late Queen, and perhaps because of that, I've always thought rather highly of her, that I thought that she has a strong personality, is charismatic, and respectful to our great institutions like our late sovereign. But you can't get away with not paying your taxes. You can't get away with covering it up. I'm afraid her blunder is too serious. Keir Starmer will have to let her go, and I'd be surprised if she's still there long after this video is uploaded.